So today's story, friends, I thought this would be a series of stories which will not do justice. Pass it to me, please. But stories about literally a legendary chassid of our own era, who passed away on Sukkot of 1980. That's 86, maybe 87, 80, maybe 86 still. 86. Some of you may have seen him. Here's a picture of him. There's a book about him, which I don't have. Well, I think I did, but I don't have it any longer. It disappeared. The Bzusha the Partisan. Rebbe called him the Partisan. Before I tell you, stories about him, particularly from this little collection, Rabbi Mendel Golchowski of Rehovot, so Rav Zusha was his mashpia, and he simply tells over things he saw and heard directly from the Zusha, and they are so inspiring. But before I share you, the Mendel stories, who was Rav Zusha? So a little bit about his background, and that'll give us a greater appreciation of him. So we'll start today. Okay, so just very quickly, as a background about him. So he was born, his father was a Rav, Yosef Yitzchak, not a Lubavitcher. And here, he was this Rav in the city of Izium in Russia. And when he was 2 years old, they moved to Poland, and then his father became a Rav in the city of Seltz. He learned in the yeshivas as a child there. When the Second World War broke out, when Russia conquered that area, all the yeshivas were closed, and he fled and crossed the border into Lithuania, which was still independent. They learned in Misnagdi Shishiva Branovich, under the, not a terribly Misnagdi Shishiva, mind you, but under the great Gaon, Elchanan Wasserman, famous Elchanan Wasserman. The Lubavitch Yeshiva in California bears his name. There's a fusion of Chabad, Elchanan Chabad, named after Elchanan Wasserman, which is a beautiful thing. So there he learned with his chavrusa was David Gershovich, who in the end also ended up being Chabad. They ended up together in Chabad many years later. Now, it's important to get a bit of his history to appreciate who he was. So when the Germans conquered Lithuania, the yeshiva wandered from place to place till it arrived in a place called Samilishuk, or Smolensk maybe. And there, the students were learning and staying in different Jewish homes in the city. And there, Rav Zusha, listen to the story, was in a place where the woman was a professional seamstress. One day, the end of the learning, it's not the Nazi occupation, but no deportations had begun. One day comes home from learning, and he sees the family is packing up. They're packing up all their belongings, and they're leaving the house. So he said, "What's going on?" So she tells him, the seamstress, that a German officer that she used to work for, and he really liked her work, revealed the secret. Tomorrow at dawn is deportation, and he's telling her, leave. So she says to him, come with us. He says, and he's a teenager here. So the Bzusha, instead of joining them, which would be the obvious thing, he's going from one house to the other and telling everybody what's happening tomorrow. At night, curfew, forbidden to be on the street. And they were in every corner, and he was able to dodge them. And when he had reached every single house, then only he escaped himself. Now, that's the story today. Then you'll soon see he joined the partisans. Eventually, he was in a labor camp. He joined the partisans, and we'll see what the Rebbe called him, my partisan, and how he lived his life forever thereafter. He was a towering chassid of this generation, and really, as you'll hear, period. And what's fascinating is the first time he came to the Rebbe was that Tavshin Chaf Aleph, that when the charter plane came, which the series of my modem that that we learned, starting with Elul, the end of Elul, we learned Tafshin Chav Aleph. And we'll share with you what the Rebbe said at the first Farbrengen before Rosh Hashanah in front of everybody about the B'zusha. To be continued. Vilimovsky. Have a wonderful day, everybody.